Good morning once again, Excellencies, Generals, Directors, and Executive Directors, all protocols observed. I took a bit of time to quickly go through the first of the two documents, which focuses on the attitudes and behaviors displayed, demonstrated by service personnel. And by service personnel, I mean men and women in uniform, whether military, whether customs, whether police, whether whatever it is. And I think in very broad terms, I share or concur with all the observations and the findings and the recommendations that the report puts forward. So what I'm going to do is not to shoot blind, but I'm going to shoot from the hip. And I'm going to tease out a number of issues that I think should challenge us, challenge orthodoxy. And I'll start by asking rhetorically, how many of us have been following the conflict in the Central African Republic in terms of its origins and in terms of its actors and players, and especially the dynamics and how these dynamics impact on human society in the Sierra, of which children are but one component. Again, how many of us followed and are still following the situation that evolved, I believe, was it December or whichever month, in South Sudan, where a newly independent country started unraveling. And we've seen the footages, even if we've not been to Juba, about the impact of a society that had high hopes, but for some reason, descended into chaos. I'm not mentioning DRC, especially the East, because DRC is too long. But DRC presents us with a number of case studies about impunity, of which children, once again, are but one subset of the victims. So in this report that is going to be presented, as I said, the first of the two documents, it is put very early on about the role of children in society. That without children, the human species will become extinct. And I don't think those who formulated that document just blindly put down that statement. It is a fact, even though we might not be comfortable accepting it, that Africa since the end of the Cold War has been the theater for a number of conflicts, especially what we call the modern conflicts, which are intrastate and which destroy the institutions of state, in the absence of which all societies, fall prey to a number of atrocities. It is also a fact that it is only in Africa, since the end of the Cold War, that consistently the largest number of peacekeepers per capita have been deployed in this continent. We don't deploy peacekeeping in normal societies. Peacekeeping is deployed in the aftermath of conflict, in Kofi Annan's words, to try and move those post-conflict countries from a state of conflict towards a state of normality or normalization. So there is a lot for us as Africans, and I'm glad that looking around the hall, for once, I see more black faces and more black skins than white skins. Because normally, in such environments, you see more Europeans, more Westerners than Africans. So that itself is encouraging, that we're here for a reason, and the reason is that we want to take issues, at core into our hands and deal with them. There is an assumption in the document if you read between the lines. And that assumption is what I put down here as some kind of baseline attitudes and behaviors of service personnel. It is assumed that service personnel don't know about the rights of the child. It is also assumed that even if they know, the nature of their training does not place them very well to respond to atrocities against children. And I think the report is right, even if it's a perception. I think it is a right perception. The reality is that all men and women in uniform, especially the military, are trained to kill. As a lieutenant, I was told that the purpose, the objective, the only reason why you're being put in uniform and you're being given a weapon and being taught what we call fieldcraft, Americans call it scalar arms or whatever it is so that you march and kill the enemy. Now, one of our old military thinkers, which I love to quote all the time, Clausewitz, the Prussian general, I think in the 19th century, put it this way, that the aim of warfare is to kill the enemy's will to fight. So soldiers are trained, naturally, regimented as killing machines. Now, to now divert such machines towards other purposes is a challenge that is facing our modern society. And I wish to remind us, if we haven't heard it, that one reason why America, I'm told, I stand to be corrected, is not very willing to actively participate in the UN type of peacekeeping is because it blunts the edge of the soldier to kill. And once the soldier's edge to kill is blunted, then you don't have an army. So they would prefer to undertake stability or stabilization operations. Stabilization operations approximate very, very closely to warlike operations. So the challenge that has faced SCI is how to make a modest attempt to change the mindset, to change the attitudes, to change the behaviors. That attempt, I think, has been fairly grasped, but it is but the beginning. And I think that there is a lot more to be done. And the few points that I'm going to put across, hence, will be suggestions that should be taken into consideration in trying to get soldiers when deployed in peace support operations, and I hope that is the narrative, or deployed in peacekeeping, to be able to use their skills in killing to protect vulnerable populations, especially children.